Gray Stadium improvements. We would go into Long Creek Park Phase 1, but we've been asked if we could switch and then go to Winston Lake Phase 2, and then we'll do Long Creek Park Phase 1 second. And then just for those who may not be familiar with this process, this is an advisory committee. We will review the projects. Committee members will provide a recommendations or comments, and those will then be presented to the Community Appearance Commission on July 22nd at 4 o'clock. And the Community Appearance Commission will have the final approval of any recommendations or comments that are sent to the project developers. With that, I will go ahead and I'm going to share my screen, and we will start with Bowman Gray. Just to let everyone know, I do a short presentation and then I open it up for discussion. All right, everyone can see my screen, hopefully. So this is Bowman Gray Stadium improvements. I think everyone knows where Bowman Gray is. It is at the southwest corner of Research Parkway and Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. This is an existing condition shot there of the stadium. This is looking on the west side of the concourse of the existing restrooms and concession stand. And this is looking on the east side of the concourse. Just another shot of the east side. This is the west gate. This is along Diggs Drive. This is the east gate, and this is on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. And this is the south gate. This is actually located in parking lot there on Williamson Road. And this is looking south on Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. The plan for this project is to remove the existing concession and restrooms there on the concourse, build new ones, as well as do some aesthetic improvements at the 3 gates, as also along Martin Luther King Jr. Drive. There will also be some concourse surface improvements, as well as improvements to the field and to the racetrack. This probably gives you a better view here. The little red, these are the entrance gates, and then here's our concession, and then restroom. Here's a rendering of the restroom facilities. They are CMU, painted CMU blocks with shingle roofs. The colors are chosen to be similar to what was currently existing at site. They will have banners on them, and the banners will reflect the use of the facility at the time, as this facility is used by Winston-Salem State for football, as well as for the Bowman Gray motor racing. So you can see the different banner there. This is a rendering of the concession stands, similar materials. And this is a rendering of the gate. This is an alternate to have these gate canopies put up. They will be metal. The staff, really didn't have much to say about this. They're very pleased to see the additional landscaping along Martin Luther King Jr. Drive and at the entrance gates. I think that will be a nice improvement to what currently is there. And with that, I will open it up to any of the committee members. If you have any questions, please make sure that you just remember to unmute yourself for the project designers.
I did have a question. The new version, of course, is an improvement, but is there an opportunity to add some texture to the walls themselves by recessing some of the bricks just to change up the masonry to give it a little more of an aesthetic appeal, since they are so linear? Is that something can be done and still keep within the budget restrictions?
Ken or Scott want to answer that? Or
Yeah, so this is Ken. Yeah, I mean, Mona, I think that certainly could be done. You know, the budget question would be one we'd have to pose back to Frank L. Bloom. They're the CM at risk. The reason the design looks the way it does is we were encouraged to try to keep some of the look of what's there today. I mean, what's there today is painted CMU with a gabled roof,
Right.
which we maintained, but we did add some of the painted red entry features, you know, from wayfinding perspective and that kind of thing. So, you know, we could try to take it a step farther. I don't know. At the end of the day, that is a little bit of a departure from what's there today, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that would be something that we just have to talk through about whether or not we want to. We've already departed by going from so many smaller buildings to going to these larger taller buildings, and that's from an economy standpoint. We can get better economy by building these larger footprint restroom buildings.
Yeah, and it could be just as simple as a portion of one wall to give some kind of aesthetic or differentiation to say this is the women's or this is the men's or this is a concession or whatever. So
Right.
just to limit it to give it some additional aesthetic appeal and texture, because looking at some of the other sites, these are extremely modular with
Right.
no surface definition. And again, that's my opinion, but I'm just putting it out there.
Now, the product we're using is because we're trying to use CMU for its
Right.
durability inside and out, knowing that it's going to take some abuse. And we're trying to use a pre-insulated CMU product. If you're familiar with something like Quick Brick, that's the one that comes to mind. And I did just get some samples today from Johnson Concrete, and they do offer this product in a white color. Actually, there's about 3 or 4 whites that you can choose from. So the good news is I don't think we'd have to paint it, you know, it'd be an integral color. But I think that also allows us flexibility to say, you know, there probably are some different finishes. I mean, it might be that we could get split face and honed face, you know, so if you wanted to either recess back a course, or maybe it's a combination of 8-inch high modular units and then go into some 4-inch high recessed bands. And so I certainly think that's doable. And I don't think we're talking about a tremendous amount of money to do that.
Right.
So I don't mind at all looking into that.
Okay.
You know, Ben,
All
we
right.
just probably should talk more about, you know, if your thoughts on that. But I'm happy to look into that. Amy, I don't know the process here about getting back to you guys on that. I'm happy to look into that and then email you, Amy, or how does that need to work?
we'll send you the comments, and then they will be officially approved, you know, during the CAC meeting.
Okay.
And then beyond that, you know, if you find out some information you want to share for the CAC meeting, you can, absolutely. If not, then essentially what will happen is I will provide those comments to you, and then after that, you can move forward and hopefully implement them as you can within the budget.
Perfect.
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, Ken.
No problem. Thank you.
I have one more thing to add. I think it's great improvements. Do well for the site. The roofing material seems like there is some standing seam out there. Is shingles? Is that just based on budget, or is there a way to? I feel like more of a commercial looking roof might hold up better and might look a little appropriate for the site as well.
Yeah. So Steve, there is the standing seam that I'm aware of that's out there is on the field house, kind of at the north end of the stadium, and that's a project that was done a few years ago. So up on the concourse, I believe all of those buildings are shingles.
They are shingle.
And you know, it's even some green shingles, I believe.
Yeah.
and because you know the concession stands have what I believe are black shingles.
Yeah.
The restroom buildings have green shingles, and then the words "men" and "women" are actually painted in green. But in talking with Ben Rowe and Robert Prestwood and Robert Mulhern, no one could really remember the pedigree about why green. Why was green used just on those things? And so we really tried to abandon the green, thinking that we're dealing with Speedway Group and Winston-Salem State, both of which have colors that are red and white. And so that's the reason we backed off of green shingles and went to black. But again, to the comment earlier about we were encouraged to try to maintain some of the aesthetic of what's there. Not that this has been deemed historic in any way, but just, I guess, from the nostalgia of the way the buildings have always looked, they've always had shingles on the concourse. Now, all that being said, you know, I think metal roof would probably work just fine. It's just under a 312 pitch. I do think there would be a cost implication with that, and currently shingles is what's in the budget. And we've worked really hard to meet this $9 million budget that we've been given. And we've even got some things that are going to be add alternates that, you know, I guess maybe in a perfect world wouldn't be add alternates, but we know that we have to get the restroom situation better. We have to get the concession stands better. We have to resurface the track, and we have to regrade the field. Beyond that, I think there's some things that we'd love to have done, but we're just not sure if it's going to make it, like the video board, for example. You know, and there's even been an upgrade considered about, you know, an asphalt concourse being upgraded to a concrete concourse. But those kind of things maybe would be less likely to make the cut if we upgraded to a metal roof. But there again, it's really a value judgment. I mean, it's the city's decision, not ours. So we'd be happy to look at other roofing materials. But I do think shingles is probably, it's going to be hard to beat the economy of that.
Makes sense. Thank you.
I have a question. It's George Edwards, and I joined a minute or two late, and I'm not very familiar with the site. I've driven by it before. But the plans call for the removal of trees, but in other enhanced landscaping, I don't know where the trees are. Maybe the plans indicated that, but I guess I didn't read the plans carefully. I missed it. Is there a way to work trees back in there? Because it seems like from when I drove by the site and looking at the drawings and the plans, the trees would really help enhance the site, make it softer, maybe give people, fans, a place to gather during the day if they were tailgating or particularly before football games. I guess even in the evening for the races, whenever those return, it'd be a nice place for people to gather under the trees. That's my question. And then I have one, well, that's my first question. I have one more. Go ahead, that answer if you can.
Yeah, so the trees that are planned to be removed are within the footprint of the concourse where we're planning to go with those new buildings. And there's the trees that are there. There's not really a pattern that I can see about the way they were planted. There's a blend of some deciduous trees and some pines, and they're pretty tall, like what I would maybe call a longleaf pine. So they're really tall, kind of open pine trees. And so some of those would have to come down to put these buildings where we planned them. There currently is not a plan to replant trees on the concourse, although Ben and I have talked a little bit about that. We got some feedback from council members, but you know, currently there's not a plan to replant them, only because what was there, with a lot of the races being at night, you know, you're not going to benefit from the shade, that kind of thing. But I understand that football games, you know, I could understand. Maybe they are during the day. Maybe it'd be nice to have the shade. So we would need to, there's currently not a plan to replant them. It's probably back to the budget thing. I hate to keep going back to that, but, you know, and if we were to replant trees, they would have to mature, you know, in order to be back to what they are today. So, you know, if we were to replant trees, I think I'd be torn about, you know, do you really want to put back deciduous trees or do you want to put back evergreens? Because deciduous, you've got the maintenance and leaves that fall. Some pine trees drop needles. I certainly don't want to specify or put anything in there that's going to create a slip hazard or a trip hazard for traffic on the concourse. But, yeah, I mean, if you guys want to add that to the comment list, we can have further dialogue about that. But currently, the plan's not to replace the trees that are coming down. And Amy, I might have shared a picture with you from the VIP lot. I think that's, I can't remember if I shared that with you or not. That's probably the best photo that I know of to kind of depict the size of the trees that are coming down.
Yeah, that should have been included with the materials that were sent out.
Okay. Yeah, so if you guys have gotten that, there's a picture that's right along Diggs Boulevard, kind of looking across the VIP lot, kind of a panoramic. And you can see that there's large deciduous trees and a couple pine trees that would have to come out. Now, we are trying to hold on to the hollies. There are hollies that are planted all along the exterior fence line. And that exterior fence line is going to have to be redone. But we certainly embraced trying to replant hollies because we think that having the hollies along the fence line looks nice and it would help kind of conceal visually and acoustically some of the traffic there. So.
There's only so much you can do for the acoustics as a neighbor to this project.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, we've talked about that. We understand it gets noisy, and I'm not sure, certainly not an acoustician, but I'm not sure what level of landscaping would contain the noise that you're probably having to deal with there.
All right. Are there any other comments from members?
I have one more quick question. What's the construction schedule? When do you expect to start and finish?
After football season.
After. Okay.
So, yeah, I certainly don't think that Frank L. Bloom wants to do anything that would disrupt football. And so as soon as that ends, I guess, depending on how their season goes, you know, then they would start, and then they need to be at least done with first phase or done in its entirety before track practice starts in typically, I think, late April, early May for the race season 2021.
And if football is not played, which is still a possibility, would you start earlier?
You know, I think that's certainly on the table. I think, you know, when a lot of the work from home strategy started and COVID took place, we decided to try to accelerate our drawing schedule. And so we originally were going to publish these drawings in different phases, but we've since seen this as maybe an opportunity, especially if football doesn't happen. We're actually scheduled to publish construction documents at the end of this month. So if we publish construction documents on July 29th, in my mind, there's no reason this couldn't be plan reviewed and permitted in August. And then I think they very much could start earlier if football is not played.
Hey, Amy, may I comment on that? So, Mr. Edwards, one the city is employing a method of construction that we've never used before, which is called the construction manager at risk method. And part of that process, the architect and the general contractor work closely together earlier in the project, which is happening now. But then the city negotiates what's called a guaranteed maximum price with the general contractor to that basically says they will perform the construction for this amount. We are still waiting to have that negotiation. When we do that, then we'll be taking that item to the council. That probably will happen September, maybe October at the latest. So, I mean, we would have to get council to formally, approve the guaranteed maximum price and the contract with Frank L. Bloom, and get that executed before we can really start. So, I mean, so even if we didn't have football season, you're probably still looking at, sometime in the fall before we could potentially, really get in there and start doing some work. So the construction drawings, everything, we're working to have all that in place. We would just have to take this last step of locking in what the cost will be to actually perform the work.
All right. Are there any other comments, questions? All right. All right, that's all we have on Bowman Gray. We are going to move now to Winston Lake. I am going to pull up that.
All right, well, I guess it's my turn. So this is the second phase of the Winston Lake project. I actually have some pictures of the first phase because they seem to be using the same materials for some of the structures. So that'll help us get a clear view of what the second stage will look like. But next slide, please. Winston Lake Park is located between Walkertown Road and Old Greensboro Road. The first phase was installing a interesting water park that I wish I knew existed earlier. But the second phase is going to be redoing large parts of the picnic area, the pier for the boats, dredging the lake, and generally improving the path around the lake. Could you do next slide? So the existing conditions, this is the current restroom, brick and timber, pretty worn. Next slide. The picnic area, also that will be torn out and redone in the second phase. This is the dock, which very much needs to be redone, and access is currently barred to right now. Next. And this is the knoll that will have improved areas for picnicking on it. They'll also be improving the path up the knoll with actual steps and stuff, I think, to prevent runoff. Next slide. Top of the knoll in its current state, definitely in need of improvement. Next slide. So the knoll that we were just looking at is in the upper right. The area that will be the, yes, thank you. And then next to it is the where the dock is and the current picnic area and the current restrooms, which will all be replaced and redone. And then there will be further improvements along the path on the other side, and also additional parking down by the, I believe it was baseball fields or football, one of the two. So next slide. This is a perspective from the lake looking at the new picnic shelter and restrooms. It has a large kind of sweeping stair with the area for informal seating, and then the more formal picnic area and the restrooms. Next slide. So it's going to have the same kind of cinder block materiality as is used in the water park. They're using 3 different colors of cinder block, sort of as a graphic for the project. Next. And they'll also be using the same steel construction for the roof of the project. Next slide. And staff is pleased with the improvements made. I think both the formal seating areas and informal seating areas, along with improvements to the paths, is definitely an improvement to the park itself. And they will be replanting the trees that they are removing.
All right, and we'll open it up for any questions or comments members have.
I'll go once again. It's great, and thank you for the differentiation on the exterior of the building. one of the questions I have, the stairs, the rise, the elevation of the stairs, and you also said there will be stairs going up to the picnic areas. What is the height or the rise on the stairs? As people get older, and I'm in one of those classes, higher rise makes it difficult to climb stairs. So is that being taken into consideration?
Yes, Ms. King.
Matthew.
All right, Mama. Well, it's being we have taken into consideration in that we have created a paved section on the grassy knoll where you walk up and you have an accessible picnic area.
Okay.
There'll be multiple picnic benches there around the side without having to climb up to the top of the knoll. I believe that the stair rises are in the 6 to 7 inch range.
Awesome.
And they are spread apart so that you're not, so that you can get some rest in between if you need.
Okay, thanks. That's good news. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Bye.
Are there any other?
Very good. And will look really nice with the other buildings and kind of redefine that whole edge. I think it looks very good.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I don't see any more, so thank you very much. We will draft these comments up and send them to you. And next, we will be looking at Long Creek Park. All right, this is the first phase for Long Creek Park. Some of you may remember Long Creek. It was a private pool and golf course that the city purchased a number of years ago. It is just north of the town of Bethania on Bethania-Tobaccoville Road. So this is actually a really nice location because there's very limited recreational facilities up in this area. So you can see the existing sort of aerial. This is the existing pool with the existing pool house. That's the existing clubhouse. And this is the drive into the park. The pool is actually on the left-hand side. And this is the existing parking area. The plan for this is to remove the existing bathhouse and the existing clubhouse, and then add a new pool house with shelter area just on the other side of the pool. And then refinish the parking area, add some additional parking spots, and then add a new market shelter here, basically just adjacent to the existing clubhouse that will be removed. There'll be other improvements to the site, mainly in terms of utility improvements and stormwater improvements, lighting, and there will be widening the drive coming in. This is a rendering of the pool house, new pool house. It'll be 3,472 square feet. It'll have structural wood decking, standing seam metal roof, polished face CMU, and a steel pipe columns in the open air portions. This is another view of the new pool house. Just another rendering. And this is the new market shelter. And it will be 40 by 80, 2,591 square feet. It too will have structural wood decking, standing seam metal roof, and steel pipe columns. There's another view of that. part of this project includes, if the funding allows, for additional trails, through new nature trails through the park. Staff recommends that, even though we do understand the funding limitations, that to encourage every effort to make those trails. Like I said, there's limited recreational facilities up in this area of Winston-Salem, so anything to add to that, even if it's not all the trails, at least do some of them if possible. And their staff is pleased to see the native shade trees will be used in this project. And I will open up for committee members if they have any comments, questions.
I have a question which is not really dealing with the designs per se, but who is going to manage the market? And I assume this is a new initiative, or are we going to be able to co-opt an existing market to bring it in there? I think the market idea sounds very intriguing, but I'd just be curious about that. And I am also curious as to what the fire truck picture is in the plans that we got. There was looks like the rear end of a fire truck parked on some site. What does that have to do with this park?
Amy, this is Kimberly. Can you hear me?
Yes.
What we're going to do is put a grass paved product on either side of the market square so that the folks can back their vehicles up and actually unload during the times the market is operational. And then that particular product will handle up to 80,000 pounds for a fire truck. It's very durable, so it helps keep the grass from getting muddy. And it's our proposed area on the site plan. It's kind of a little bit different color than the rest of the lawn.
Thank you.
This is Robert Preston. I'll jump in on your first question there. I don't think it's been fully decided who's going to manage it. I think the initial thought is Recreation already has a system set up for renting their larger picnic shelters, so it would probably be rolled into that system.
Anybody else have any comments they'd like to share? Questions? I'm not seeing any. All right, that was a quick review for you guys. That's all we have. So that will conclude the meeting. Thank you very much. And again, these projects will be heard at the July 22nd CAC Community Parents Commission meeting at 4 o'clock, and that also will be live streamed. And that's when the CAC will make the final recommendation on the comments and recommendations that are sent to the project designers. Anyone out there listening. Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.